What about meditation? I think, for example, meditation, like self-inquiry, can become a preoccupation or a habit that people do, which actually takes them farther and farther from really experiencing who they are. And yet, it seems like there is a place for a practice like meditation. And I wonder if you could talk a little more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that inquiry and meditation are really ultimately the same thing. In this sense, like I said, the question or inquiry, when you drop a question into your being, it's not like a mantra that we say over and over and over to ourselves, or even something that we search in the mind. We drop it into our being like dropping that pebble into a lake, and it sinks. And where does it sink? It sinks into the silence of our being, and deeper silence, and deeper silence, and deeper, and deeper, and deeper. You see, and then the question might come up, and to whom does this silence arise to? And then we just let that drop deeper, more quiet, more quiet, more quiet. So this really, inquiry and meditation are really ultimately the same thing. This is the whole inquiry is almost a tool to allow natural meditation to arise. Okay, so meditation and inquiry are sort of, they're two aspects of spirituality or spiritual practice that have two, I think, even they go together and ultimately they are the same thing, but they have two different flavors, you might say. I think that spiritual inquiry is something that takes some volition, at least enough volition to ask the question, and to watch where the question takes us, to feel where the question takes us. There has to be some willingness to be awake. There has to be some curiosity, which means we really need to want to know the answer. It's got to be very important to us. And so there's a certain element of energy, some passion, some volition, some activity, and just to ask the question in a way that's very earnest and sincere. And so this is sort of a much more energetic quality. You know what I mean? The other quality of meditation, which we can get into, is in the way that I teach or talk about meditation. It's very, very, very simple, which is, it's simple. To me, true meditation is something that spontaneously happens when we simply allow everything to be as it already is. Which means we sit down and we just let our experience be what it is without any effort or intention to change our experience in any way whatsoever. So if we sit down and we feel very quiet, then we let that be. And if we find we have a very active mind, then we let that be. We just let everything be. And the more we allow everything to be, the more the mind naturally starts to settle, simply by letting everything be as it is. And this is very different than what most meditators and most spiritual seekers are used to hearing, I think, especially when it comes to meditation, because meditation is always like, here's what you're supposed to do. Say a mantra, count your breaths, do this visualization, doing. Do this, do that. It's a discipline, concentration, focus the mind. And as long as we're doing that, we might focus the mind or concentrate the mind powerfully enough to where we are temporarily not looking at the mind. You know, if you think one thought and you hold your mind on that one thought, then the mind isn't bothering you. But as soon as concentration relaxes, which it has to, because it takes effort, the mind tends to come back. And almost anybody who's meditated for very long finds out very quickly that through techniques, if they get good at the technique, they can get very centered, very calm, very quiet. But then as soon as they let go of the technique, everything rushes back in. So the way that I talk and teach about meditation is you don't do any concentration. You don't try to manipulate your experience, because that's what egos do. Egos is the thing. Ego is the manipulation of experience. And so how can we ever be free, which by its very nature has to be the discovery of that which is totally natural, without effort, spontaneous? How can we discover that as long as we are purposely trying to control our experience? We can't. We can't find some place of natural ease. So I think real meditation is by simply allowing everything to be as it is. It's very much like setting a cup of muddy water on a table. If you just sit it down, it doesn't matter how muddy it is. It can be very muddy. But if you set it down and don't shake it and don't try to do anything with it, the mud naturally settles. Thought and emotion will naturally start to fall out of the center of awareness, all by themselves, without any manipulation. And all of a sudden meditation starts to spontaneously arise in one's experience. So this meditation is something that's effortless. It really doesn't take anything from you. It doesn't require volition. It doesn't require anything of you rather than just letting everything be as it is.
Wouldn't you say it requires a certain spiritual maturity to get to the point where you can simply let everything be the way it is? I know, for example, if I had been asked to do that 30 years ago when I first started to meditate, I'm sure that I wouldn't have been able to show up to be able to even begin to know how to do that. I mean, so it seems like it takes a certain degree of spiritual maturity. Maybe one has practiced meditation or done other techniques where you've learned how to be present, to a certain degree, so that allowing things to be the way they are is something that you can relate to, or it can come naturally.
I think what you say has some truth. Sometimes it can be easier for someone to simply be present with their experience if they're used to some discipline that has helped them be present with their experience. But actually, when I was with my teacher and I asked how to meditate, she didn't say let everything be as it is, but she also didn't give any instructions. And of course I didn't necessarily like that because the mind wants instructions. It wants something to do. And when I wasn't given instructions, you see, when we aren't given instructions, then what are we left with? You see, we're left right in the middle of that unknown and that insecurity, which we're going to have to face anyway. We're going to have to face it. And my experience with working with people is when I tell them simply allow everything to be as it already is, sure. A lot of times when they start to try to do it, the mind goes crazy, they go crazy. It's like taking the jar off a lid, or the lid off a jar, I should say. But if they just keep this very, very simple intention, which is to just allow everything to be as it is, it starts to come to them. It just starts to come to them. So see, I don't necessarily see that a preliminary practice is that important, to be quite honest. Mm-hmm. Because often, I find almost just the opposite often, with people who have had a lot of experience with disciplined meditation. They become so conditioned with controlling their awareness and focusing it, that when you say let everything be as it already is, they have no idea what to do. Mm-hmm. Because they've been conditioned, spiritually conditioned, not to do that.
That's interesting, yes. What about the role of effort? And you mentioned intention, mm-hmm. You mentioned volition, which, or effort. Suzuki Roshi used to say, follow the wave, drive the wave. It's an expression he liked to use, which I always think of as being like a surfer. It's like you got to catch the wave in order to ride it. But if you keep paddling, you're going to get dumped completely.
Right.
So there's a certain amount of effort it takes to get onto the wave, but then you let the wave take you. So I'm wondering about that. What it might be called right effort, or effortless effort. Or
yeah. So to me, right effort has much more to do with finding out what your passion is, which means what's really heartfelt. Which, if someone comes to me, what I want to know is, why are you here? Which is what is in your heart, in your being, in your experience, which causes you to sit here at this moment and to inquire in any way into the true nature of yourself, or to find God or freedom. What is that within you now? You see, because what I find out is, as soon as somebody can really contact that, then they're in contact with their passion, with their heart, with their own interest, with their own curiosity. You see, it's already there. It's already there.
It's an energy that's naturally arising.
That's right. Otherwise, they would have never come to hear me. In fact, they would never come to listen to a discussion like this. It would never occur to somebody to do that if it wasn't there.
Yes.
So I always assume that it is there simply because they've come to hear me or speak with me. I assume that that passion is there even if they can't find it. It's still there. You see? Once they find that, once they return to themselves, then there's something that's very different that we really can't call effort. You see, because when you're passionate, have you noticed that when you're passionate, effort may be being exercised, but it doesn't feel like discipline. It's not forced. Something very spontaneous.
Yes.
Because you want to do it. You see what I mean?
Yeah, effort has a sense of something added on.
Added on.
Yeah, something extra.
Right.
Whereas you're talking about a natural energy. It's like the wave that I was talking about in the surfer. It's like the wave is naturally arising inside you. You just have to surf your own wave, in a sense.
That's right.
You know, catch your own wave and let it carry you.
And this is the first thing that the spiritual seeker usually sacrifices. You see, because they almost instantly lose contact with their own heart, with their own passion, because they go to the teacher or they read the book or whatever they do, and they start it with this very innocent, very curious, heartfelt something that caused them to look deeply inside. And then instantly they give that up for what the teacher tells them to do.
Yes.
What the books tells them to do. And then they're in the realm of discipline, effort, trying to conform, trying to do the right thing, be the right person, you know, have the right experience. And you see they almost immediately leave their passion, their heart.
Yes.
Which is where the spontaneous effort comes, that comes out of joy and that sense of adventure.
Yes, that's beautiful. I think that I've seen that with people.